Lesson number 58 is about percent word problems. And our first question says, Mame and Jim have 75 thingamabobs. They want to give Hal 20% of them. How many should they give Hal? Well, if they have 75 thingamabobs, it's not being very specific there, but we can still figure out what our answer is going to be because they want to give Hal 20% of them. So we've got to figure out 20% of 75 thingamabobs is how many? Well, we could write that 20% of 75 thingamabobs is equal to how many, or what number, Wn. If we find 20% of 75, we found out how many they should give Hal. Well, 20%, well, that's the same as 2 over 10, or 20 over 100, or 1 over 5. But we'll use 2 over 10 for now, times 75 over 1. And in this problem, we can simplify before we multiply. Well, both 10 and 75 are divisible by 5. 10 divided by 5 is 2, and 75 divided by 5, 75 divided by 5, do you know what that is? It must be 15. 75 divided by 5, 5 goes into 7, one time, we get 5. With 2 left over, and we bring down our 5, 5 goes into 25, 5 times. So that's how we get it. So now we can find our answer. We've got 2 times 15. Oh, before we find our answer, there's more, and you might have seen it. 2 over 2. 2 over 2, that's the same thing as 1 over 1. If you saw that, very good. If you didn't see that, that's okay, because we can still work with it, and now we can find our answer. 1 times 15, that's 15. 1 times 1, that's 1. So we get an answer of 15. So 20% of 75 is equal to 15. So how many should they give Hal? They should give Hal 15 thingamabobs. Make sure you go ahead and box your answer. Make sure you add your label as well because it's a word problem. It's not very specific again, but that's what we're given, so that's what we have to label our answer. Let's look at our next problem. Here it says, Bew and Christy hide 600 raisins. This is 60% more than they hid last month. How many raisins did they hide last month? I have no idea why Bew and Christy are hiding raisins. That's a lot of raisins to hide, but hopefully they're picking them up so they don't rot. But anyway, let's go ahead and solve the problem, because that's what we need to do. They hide 600 raisins. This is 60% more than they did last month. How many did they hide last month? Well, last month, that's the original amount. So last month, LM, that must be equal to 100%. We're assuming that that's what they started with. So if they hid 60% more this month, so this month, TM, this month is going to equal 160%, because they increased from 100% up 60% to get 160%. So it says they went up to 160%. Now, 160% of last month is equal to 600 raisins. So we can solve. 160% of last month, LM, is equal to 600. So 160%, well, that's the same thing as 160 over 100, which is the same thing as 16 over 10. And let's leave it actually as 160 over 100 rather than reducing. You'll see why in just a moment. So we've got 160 over 100 times last month is equal to 600 over 1. So in order to get last month by itself, we need to multiply by the reciprocal, and the reciprocal of 160 over 100 must be 100 over 160. The hundreds cancel, the 160s cancel, and then we balance out our equation by multiplying by 100 over 160 on the other side. So, well, in this one, it would have been nice if the 100 were in the denominator, but it's not. So we can simplify still, and in order for us to simplify, let's simplify the 100 over 160. that must be 10 over 16. So we'll rewrite. We're going to get 600 over 1 times 10 over 16. Let's simplify that again to get 5/8. Instead of 10/16, we're going to have 5/8 because that's half of 10/16. And now we can continue to simplify. We're going to cut both numbers in half. Half of 8 is 4, and half of 600 is 300. Half of 4 is 2, half of 300 is 150. Half of 2 is 1, and half of 150 is 75. So now we've got our denominator down to 1, and our numerator is 75 times 5. Well, 75 times 5, we could work that out on the side. 5 times 5 is 25. We'll carry our 2. 7 times 5 is 35, plus 2 more is 37. So we get 375. Last month, it sounds like Bew and Christie hid 375 raisins. That's reasonable, because they hid more raisins this month. So our number, 375, is less than 600, so it makes sense. It's always important when you do a problem like this to make sure your answer is reasonable. So, how many raisins did they hide last month? 375, and we need a label, raisins. Honestly, I have no idea why they did that. But we figured out the answer, and that's what we needed to do. And we did it by writing out our equation. We undid the multiplication of a fraction by multiplying by the reciprocal, and then we solved by simplifying before we multiplied. Lesson practice will be on page 237. Make sure you've got your notes complete, and I'll see you during our next class.